I'm Tom.
And I'm Olly.
We work at NB, or NB Studio, which is a branding and communication studio. It started in 1997, and we do branding and communications in every sense of the word for large corporations, small enterprises, across all different sectors. We're a fairly small team based south of the river, down near Borough Market, Tate Modern. And I think we're here tonight just to talk a little bit about what inspires us and try and share that and learn from everyone else a little bit, really. Hello. Well, there's a promise of a beer break, so we'll try and keep it quick. This is more of a reminder to ourselves, really. So I'm Tom and that's Olly, and we're two people that work at MB. And if I get this going, MB is a branding and communication studio. There we go, we got some work going. It was started in 1997 by Nick and Anne, two guys who used to work at Pentagram. And we do lots of different things, and that's what I think why we both like it. We work for all sorts of different clients, all different sectors. So every day is a little bit different, and there's lots of different challenges. And apologies if this is a bit immature, but we kind of, Nick and Alan are the two creative directors and founders, and they normally do these things. But we sort of said, oh, okay, well, look, this is when closer to when they started.
It's about 15 years ago.
Yeah, and then they went through a phase where they kind of wore jackets, and then this is most recently, and so that's why they couldn't be here tonight.
Tom had to go swimming with Alan, which is, I think, a line that not many people want to cross with their bosses.
Yeah, don't go swimming with your boss. And we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that inspires everyone in the studio, that is behind some of the work that we do, and then how some of that has ended up going into quite weird areas, but into more of our commercial work. So, Olly.
So first picture is by a lady called Christa van der Nijt, and she's a Dutch photographer. And this is an image that kept popping up at the end of presentations internally, in mood boards and that sort of stuff. And we thought, what is it about that image that is really resonating for us and making us really think differently about the sort of work we're doing? Another image that popped up loads was Florentine Hoffman. Everybody's familiar with the big inflatable duck that I think rocked Japan seriously. And obviously it went down the Thames and loads of other cities. That was another thing that we kept looking at and thinking about in terms of the point of inspiration. And this is Tom's personal favourite, Dog Amongst the Otters.
Dog in a Sea of Otters.
Sorry, got that wrong. Yeah. And that's credited to a Reddit user circa 2015. I'm amazed I actually found that citation, but yeah. These are things that kept popping up, and we're like, what is it about these images that we like? What is it that makes us reference them a lot recently? And through lots of discussion with the partners, we kind of came up with a statement, which is creative courage. So all of these people that we talk about a lot are brave with their work. They push boundaries, they take risks, they challenge conventions. And that started to become a bit of a mantra for us at MB and challenge the way we work. It was a sort of sounding board, it's a touch point, and it became part of our practice in a more conscious way. I guess it was there already, it always has been for a good 20 years.
I think because we work with some quite big and quite commercial clients, and I think sometimes it's how can you push them into interesting areas, or how can we keep it interesting for ourselves and make sure that we're taking risks and doing all the new stuff that's being talked about tonight.
Yeah, so it started with this idea, and we thought, okay, so we've got this thing now. How do we make it something which is tangible, something that we can actually talk about and sort of turn it into something interesting? So we started doing a series of talks which were something that we could get clients involved with, something that we could start to talk about this ethos with a little bit more. And our first touch point was this man, Michael Wolff. So anybody who knows MB knows that we do a lot of work with Michael Wolff. He's a fantastic man, a very intelligent man. And he's guided, I know Nick and Alan over many years, and now me and Tom are lucky enough to work with him. So he did a talk on something he calls brinkmanship, which is what he defines as that point in a client relationship where it either goes totally fucking wrong, or you nail it and it turns into something really exciting and really amazing. And he gave loads of references for that, and that was really insightful, and for us, a really solid example of creative courage. The second one, we got in a poet called Roger McGough. If you're not familiar with his work, I really suggest you look him up. Personal favourite, Mafia Cats. Won't say any more on that one. And he spoke a lot about his work, read a lot of poems, but he spoke about poetry as a device that he could talk about really complicated social issues in a way which wasn't pretentious and bridged gaps between people, which was quite a nice example of creative courage. Again.
And all these talks are just like about 40 people and our whole team just in the studio.
This guy, Rupert Gould, is an ex-client and a lovely man. He spoke about tragedy and how it's got so many different meanings across so many different platforms. But in the media, tragedy is used on like a daily basis. There's always something tragic happening in the world. Whereas in culture and the arts, the idea of tragedy is probably one of the most contested that there has ever been across, theatre, art, fashion, design, all that sort of stuff. So, again, in his line of work, it was what he felt was quite a powerful thing to challenge. This guy, Simon Evans, is a magician, and that was wicked. That was such an interesting day to see this guy come in and literally con you, effectively. That's what it felt like. He spoke about misdirection, and he said that you have a trick, and anybody can learn a trick, but the difference between a trick and magic is the ability to misdirect, and he reckons that's a born gift, which he has, he says. And finally, the last talk we had was this guy, Robin Gill, who's a chef, and it was really interesting to hear the perspective of a chef on being courageous and taking risks, because he basically said that chefs have to take risks to get noticed. The only way you make it in that industry and have a name for yourself is to gamble, to put your neck on the line, to challenge conventions, or dig out old recipe books. And he's really into his fermentation, which sounds gross, but actually it all tastes really amazing. And he also took huge personal risks as well, and was quite brave in setting up businesses and borrowed money from in-laws and that sort of stuff. So really interesting guy. And his place is the Dairy in Clapham. Yeah. And if you haven't been, you should definitely go. It's absolutely amazing.
What's the full name of that slope?
His talk was called "I've Really Fucked It Up."
Yeah. It does. Yeah, it could be.
He definitely has.
Yeah.
He definitely has.
He's married with children.
So definitely has.
So
moving on.
Yeah.
Sorry,
From
Robin.
that, it started to sort of escalate. It had got some real emotion behind it. And Nick and Alan were asked to talk at something called the Design in Durban in South Africa. And Ravi turned up and he said, "Yeah, guys, I think your work's amazing. We want you to do a presentation, but don't show us any work." And Nick and Alan were sort of, "Okay, sounds cool, but what do you mean by don't show us any work?" And he said, "I don't know, graphic design the opera," which initially mental idea.
Then we're like, creative courage. Remember the creative courage, Nick. Yeah. Remember creative courage, Alan.
Which, so we ended up coming up with an idea about creating a play around the client-designer relationship called Turntable. So they did it in Durban, and then they've recently done it at Design Yatra in India. Here are some pictures. And it was quite well received. We went through the sort of teething period of it, so by the end of it, we just couldn't watch it anymore. But
got there in the end, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. And the sort of last example of creative courage, which has been internal for us, if you like, that we're going to talk about, is this project we did with Spring Chicken, which is a company that specialises in products for older adults that aren't beige and boring and plastic. They're colourful and vibrant and fun, because it's older adults now aren't sort of rickety old war heroes. They're people like
Nick and Alan.
Nick and Alan, no. They're younger people, effectively. So we came up with this idea of the older adults crossing the road sign was a bit derogatory, and we challenged 80 to 100 designers to rethink it and come up with some ideas. So we put on an exhibition, sold some books, and had quite a lot of fun with it. And it got real traction. We got quite a lot of press, and it was quite a fun project. We even got Margaret Calvert to do one.
Yeah,
and the story behind this, which is really nice actually, is the only sign she didn't design herself. She got some school kids it was a competition or something in the 70s, wasn't it? Yeah. And this is her and her little brother when they were children or something. Something like that. It's a nice story.
Yeah. Take a word for it, sorry. Completely blank.
I was hoping for a bit of backup there, Tom, but...
Yeah, fail. And so all of that was kind of... not self-initiated necessarily, but like they were for smaller or more internal things, and we were thinking, oh god, like how can we keep this like creative courage thing going on I keep saying commercial work, but like some of the the other stuff we were doing. And one sort of little tale, I guess, is with work that we did for the Almeida Theatre. So, and that's Rupert, who Olly spoke about earlier on. So amazing little theatre in Islington. It just is cleaning up now. It's doing brilliantly. But we joined just before Rupert started, or they just put Rupert in place, and they went just kind of like the most awesome brief you could ever get. Okay, there's too many of them, but they're like great, like little watchwords, like this is what we want to be and this is what we want to do, and la la la. So we did the brand identity. Make it sound really easy. It took ages. And one of the first sort of applications or things we were tasked with was all the promotional stuff for a new play which Rupert was directing called King Charles III, and it was a future history play where Charles is king and he signs a bill limiting the freedom of the press.
You've read that bio way too many times.
I just remember it.
Future history.
And then, so we had to. So again, we were thinking, are we allowed to use his face on it? We don't really know. We did a bit of research, and we had to cobble this together out of 9 different images to hopefully get around copyright. And they were like, okay, well, we want to be like smart, relevant, all of those things. So yeah, let's just go for it and see what happens. And they bought loads of ad space all on the tube and everything, and we sent it off to TfL, and they were just like, no, you can't do that. You can't use his. You can't. It was a really quite snooty thing. Like, you cannot use an image of the royal family for commercial purposes. Blah blah blah. So we just were like, right, okay, we'll pixelate it. So we pixelated it, and then they were like, okay, yeah, you can do that. We're like, okay, we're just going to do it. And then the phone rings at the studio. I've got to get this bit right. It's tricky with the builds. And that's actually a replica of the phones that we have. And someone rings up and goes, oh, I've just seen the Richard III poster that you've done, and I'd like to buy it. And I was thinking, it's King Charles of him, or whatever. And sometimes this happens, and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, maybe we can arrange that. We can put you in touch with the theatre, if you like. And she went, oh, that'd be interesting. And just out of interest, who am I talking to? I think that's kind of a weird question to ask if you just want to buy a poster. So I said my name, and then she went, oh, and I saw when I was on the tube that one is pixelated, and it's different to the one at the theatre where you can see his face. And I started that little it's because of TfL, and aren't they silly? And they said we couldn't do it, so you can have whichever one you want, really. And I sort of put the phone down, and then got an email. And it was from the director of marketing at the Almeida going, whatever you do, don't say anything to the press. They're ringing round. They're trying to find out why you've pixelated the face. And so it turns out she was actually a spy. And she was working for the Daily Mail online. And then it also went on to that. And that's poor use of apostrophe there as well on BBC. Shame. And also The Independent, a bit more highbrow. And it was kind of like our first one. So it was like, oh, God, we're in trouble. But it was fine because of all those things that we mentioned.
Smart, relevant,
provocative. So they took a bit of confidence from it. And we did, in fairness, go on and do some other stuff which wasn't banned. Although that one was at the end again, TfL again, because it was
inciting violence.
Vandalism. It's about the riots. It was like, oh. Anyway, but we didn't. But by this point, we had a little thing going in the studio where it was like, can we do a poster that will they'll sign off, but will also get banned? So we managed to shoot this with David Stewart, hand in a blender, banned. And then a lady with a heater in a bath and Ben Wishaw with a lighter and an oil drum, both banned. And that was the last stuff we did with the Almeida. And then this next little story, I guess, but it ended amicably. It's about, creative courage, the courage of your conviction, stand by it. And we recently, earlier this year, it's all blurring in, we worked on a rebrand for Ravensbourne, and Marlon mentioned you're an alumni, so I have to be careful here. And we'd really amazing and interesting process that we'd put together a sort of steering group of people from all across the organisation, so governors, students, alumni, HR people. So we had this it was kind of 20, 25 people in every meeting, which if you all do this stuff, that's really unwieldy. But it was to make sure that there was everyone was consulted, or across, as much as possible, people were taken on the journey. And through quite a long and collaborative process, we got to somewhere like this. And it was okay, now we need to take this and share it with the wider Ravensbourne student community and sort of say, this thing's coming, what do you reckon? Give us some feedback. So we made these little feedback cards, and we printed it out on easels and stuff, and we had a little area in the reception, and we had a little video playing and everything.
Everyone was really excited to hear what
I
everybody
think
thought.
just please let this go well. If this goes well, like we're through all this work, all this hard work, everyone's efforts is validated, and we got things like, this is a terrible design. The worst logo ever. It gets worse. There are no words to describe how bad this is. Whoever did this design, shoot yourself in shame.
It wasn't me. I'm going to point that out.
And then, and this one is like, oh, draw, get ready. Makes me want to commit suicide. You think, at the end of the day, it's only a logo. And this sounds really like out of the box, we kind of did it anyway. Like there were also lots of good ones, and it was refined a little bit. So some of the feedback we got was actually really good. But again, you get a bit of a wobble here because you're thinking, oh God, are we doing the right thing? What's going to happen to us? And this happened. This is it. So that was like, again, refined, this whole idea of the frame, put all the amazing stuff that happens at Ravensbourne in the frame, and it launched, and then Olly, you can do the voice.
So they put it on Facebook. What a fucking abomination. The straw poll received 97% dislikes, yet you changed it regardless. What is this? The last general election. It's like someone got drunk, found a copy of Microsoft Word 97 and couldn't stop playing with the clip art.
Two likes.
Holy Mother of God. And what are the blue circles for? Do they mean something or just shoot me now?
Lots of gun references, Ravensbourne. And then we got these, which is exactly what we wanted. It's like people working with it. So this is like, when we saw this, we're like, hooray. This one, getting there. And then this one, not so much. but like great to see. And then the kind of curious thing was that, again, you only see like a microcosm of it, and we just sort of stuck at it. And then it goes out into the press, and it actually got it was well received, and all of the intelligent people at Ravensbourne that worked on it, that helped shape, because it wasn't just us. There were other people saying, well, I think this is terrible or good or whatever, and so it was done with them, and it goes out, and it's funny how that changes people's minds once they start seeing our blog, and there's loads of those. Sorry. And then this nice little relic. This was the original straw poll, 121 votes. Quite, 88% of people actually hated it. And then you get this is like after the effect. This is like under consideration or something. None of it really matters. But you start to get some better feedback. And I guess the moral of the story for that one is like that whole creative courage just made us not be too scared to change it. Like we knew we were onto something until we just kept it. And that's sort of the end, and that's just a weird slide that we put at the end of presentations sometimes. We'd love to. Thank you.
Cheers, chaps. Brilliant. Thank you very much.